Okay, folks, welcome back to our discussion on creating client-based rate limiting. So we want to ensure that for each client we have a rate limiter. So we left off with this global rate limiter, and here we created our clients map, and of course we said that the map would simply grow to a large size if we left it as is. So there's one thing I forgot. I am locking the map, but I somehow forgot to unlock it. So let me include that. Okay, great. So in the last video I didn't include this part, but actually you have to remove the lock. So even though I remove it here, this is a conditional, so it will not always be removed or unlocked. So I have to make sure I unlock here before calling the next handler. Alright, so let's move on. So what I want to do is to ensure that this map does not grow too large where it slows down the system. And so what I want to do is to check to see for each client if they have been idle for a certain amount of time. I want to remove them from the map. Okay, so let's say it's 3 minutes. We're gonna check if there are any clients who have not been active or have not visited our API for the last 3 minutes and they're in our map. We want to remove them. Alright, so let's do that. The first thing I'm going to do to help with this is to create a client type. So I'm going to create a client type. Alright, so type client, and what I'm going to include for the client is the limiter field, which is of type rate dot limiter, and then I'm going to include another field which will be keeping track of the time last seen. So when was the last time we saw them? When were they last active with our API? Okay, so you need to import the time package because we're using time. Okay, so the time package. Okay, so we have this client type, and so I will make an update to the map. So the map is no longer having rate that limiter as a value. It's going to have a pointer to a client as the value. So the key remains the IP address, and the value is simply that client, which contains a limiter. Let me spell this correctly. Limiter, L-I-M-I-T-E-R, contains a limiter and a last seen field. Okay. Now, let me update this here. So we no longer will be having rate that limiter, right? Because that would make any sense since we changed the map. So actually what I'll be having is an client. Okay, so we're having a new client. And notice, because it's a type and it's a pointer, then I'm going to use the ampersand. So ampersand is saying I'm going to create a new client and I want the address of that client. Now the client, of course, needs to be initialized with two things. One of them is the limiter field, and we will initialize it the same way we did with new limiter, and we're going to use 2 and 4. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is to update the last seen time of the client. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna simply say clients IP dot last seen is time dot now. Okay, so keep in mind client IP will give me the value and for that of the client, and so for that client I'm gonna use its last seen field. And likewise, I cannot use allow here. I will have to use limiter that allow. Right? That allow. Great. Now, that's just taking care of some of the changes because of introducing client. Okay. But we now need to solve the issue of removing any client who has been inactive for 3 minutes. And so to do that, I will simply create it right here before the return. Okay, I will create a background Goroutine. So we will launch a background Goroutine that removes all entries from the client's map once every minute. So every minute our background process will wake up and it will clean up our map and then it will go back to sleep. Alright, so let's write this background Goroutine. So if you recall, to make a Goroutine, we simply use the Go keyword and we're using an anonymous function, so we're going to say func. Okay, and so let's put open close. Alright, good. Alright, so that's a Goroutine. So what do we want this Goroutine to do? Well, we want it to keep running forever as long as our application is running. So it's an infinite loop. And so the first thing we want to do is to say time that sleep. Okay, we want it to sleep for a minute. So I will simply say time that minute. Okay, so after a minute it will wake up. And what do we want it to do when it wakes up? We want it to check the map to see if there are any clients who have been inactive for, let's say, 3 minutes. Of course, to get access to the map, we need to lock it. So let's lock before cleaning, before starting to clean. Okay, so let's get the lock. That's mu.lock. We have the lock, so now we are the only ones. The Goroutine is the only one now that has access to the map, to make changes to the map. Okay, every other Goroutine who wants to access the map must wait. And so I'm just going to create a loop. I'm going to say for key value, which is client. Okay, range clients map. Okay, what do I want to do? Well, I'm going to assign the key to IP. I'm going to assign the value to client. And what I'm going to check for now is to see if there are any one of them where the last seen is greater than 3 minutes. So I'm going to call the time that since function, and what it does, it will take the last seen field, okay, and it will take what time it currently is now, and it will subtract. So now minus last seen, and if I get a value that is greater than 3 minutes, then I want to remove that entry. I'm going to use the delete function. It needs the map. We have a map clients, and it needs the key. The key is IP. Okay, and that's what we need to do. Of course, after I have gone through the map, then I must unlock, because I don't need it anymore. I've done my job. The Goroutine has done its job. So after it unlocks, right? After it unlocks, then okay, so we are here. Okay, we do all of this, we unlock, and then we go back into the for loop. And the first statement we hit is to sleep. And so our Goroutine will sleep. A minute later, it will simply repeat what it just did here. Lock the map, clean up, unlock, and sleep again. And it will do that until our application stops running. Okay? So once our application is running, this will keep happening every minute. Alright, so let's again, we created a client type. We use that for the map. We created a background Goroutine to do the cleanup, and we simply made changes to the code where to reflect that we are using a client type. Okay, and of course we need to make sure we unlock before we call the next handler. Now let's start up our server to make sure we didn't break anything and everything still works. Okay, great. And so let me run again. Alright, and we see that it still works. So now, as far as the server is concerned, each client that wants a resource, that client will be tracked. So each client will be tracked. If I have 5 clients, 5 different clients, I'll have 5 entries in the map, and for each of those clients I will know exactly how many requests they have made. And whichever client makes too many requests based on what we set the limit as, then that client will receive a rate limit exceeded error message or error response. Okay, let's leave it here. What I want to do in the next video is to simply configure our rate limiter so that we can turn it off and on. We can set the rate, and we can set the number of allowed requests as flags. Okay, so I'll see you in that next lesson.